a couple of keys to good short game movements, and then we're going to talk about a couple of different shots to hit.
Okay.
I think you are better off most of the time as a golfer learning to hit different shots with one club than you are using only one swing all the time using different clubs.
Right.
I think from a feel perspective, if you have a go-to wedge, something that you can really trust and something that you're really familiar with, I think that lends itself to better results than spreading it across a bunch of clubs and not really having like a ton of competence with one.
Right.
And then you don't have confidence with one.
Right.
So practicing with your favorite club. Now your favorite club needs to have loft. Your favorite club cannot be a 9-iron.
Okay.
You need to know how to use a lofted club because these days greens are so fast, fairways are fast, the rough is long. Like, you need to be able to stop the ball. Stopping the ball is not going to be possible in certain situations unless you have loft.
Right.
So your favorite club should be a 56, maybe a 60. I'm open for discussion on those. It probably shouldn't be a pitching wedge.
Got it.
Or even a 52. So that's kind of the first thing, is you need to have a very good relationship with one club. And then you can introduce others. But for the most part, one club would be my recommendation. When it comes to the short game, I think there's a lot of room for personal preference. You can take what I say and make minor customizations to it, and I'm fine with that. Everyone's different. You need to be able to make decent contact. That's, to me, non-negotiable. You have to be able to make good contact. You also need to be able to control distance. If you can do only those two things, you can get to be pretty decent at the short game. The third thing you need is to be able to control trajectory. You have to be able to hit high-ish, medium-ish, low-ish, or at the very least high and low. If you don't want medium, that's okay.
Okay.
You cannot only hit it low, because then if you had to go over a bunker or up a steep slope, what are you going to do? You can't overcome that situation with a low shot. If you can only hit it high, what would you do from right? I mean, it would just make the math really challenging. So being able to do both is really, really important.
I'm sorry. Contact, high or low. What was the second one?
Distance. Being able to control distance.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, what we're going to start with is some technique. We're going to work on what we're going to call like a baseline. This is going to be kind of a medium trajectory shot. It's not going to be super high. It's not going to be super low.
Okay.
For high and low, the only adjustments you're really going to make is distance from the ball and ball position.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to start in the middle of the feet like this. Some people will tell you never to do that. I'm not necessarily a believer in that. Your feet are going to be at your ankles. They're going to be about a club head apart. The ones I watched you hit, you were standing kind of like this. This looks like a guy getting ready to hit it 100 yards, not 10 yards.
Right.
Okay, so we're hitting a short shot. We're going to use a short stance. This would apply up to about 30 yards.
Okay.
After 30, you can start making it a little wider. This also is going to apply to high, medium, and low. So this isn't going to change too much. The ball position is going to change. If I was going to go low, it's going to be more back. If I'm going to go high, it's going to be more forward. Medium is medium. We're going to start with the medium shot. When it comes to the technique, similarly to what we did with your full swing, there's two key elements that I think kind of have to be present in a good chipping and pitching motion, and then the rest is up for discussion. Those two things are, your body needs to move towards the target throughout the stroke. It's not after the stroke, it's during, and I believe it should be from the start. If you were on a force plate or a pressure mat, because your arms are going backwards and because you start to push forwards, it might feel like your right foot is engaged with the ground, but your body should be moving gradually to the target throughout the swing. That's one of the two things that I think is really critical. What that will help you do is land the club after the ball. Ball first, ground second. So I've started using this, like, I think it's alliteration. Turn back, tip forwards. Easy to remember. So as you turn back, you tip forwards. The button on the top of my hat starts moving forwards very gradually right from the beginning. It's not a lunge, and it doesn't happen after the hit. It starts right away. Pretty gentle, and it's synchronized with the rest of what I'm doing. That's one of the two things. I think the other really important thing, we talked about the keys to chipping and pitching, controlling distance. If you want to be able to control distance, you have to be able to control the speed of the club. If you always have a rapid amount of acceleration or a noticeable amount of deceleration, I think you will struggle. So other than the forward motion, the other borderline requirement to me is that the club needs to be going at a constant rate of speed. Not wildly fast, not wildly slow going through. The backswing and the forward swing should look like they match. That will help you be pretty symmetrical. And then if you need to make the shot go farther, you make it bigger. And if it needs to go shorter, you make it smaller.
Okay.
I think that's very manageable. You could take all of that and then try it out and come up with your own little thing, but I think those would help you with contact, speed control, and then once you can understand where to put the ball in your stance, then you get the trajectory.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to try for small stance, club head apart. We're going to put the ball in the middle to start here. I would put your hands in the middle of the grip for the medium shot. When we go to hit a low shot, we're going to get closer to the ball. I would probably go down the grip. So a low shot's low on the grip, a medium shot's medium on the grip, and a high shot would be high on the grip. I'm making other adjustments to my setup too, but that's an easy way to kind of remember that. We're going to get set up in here. Medium grip, medium stance, small stance. I'm going to move forwards, turn back, tip forwards at a constant speed. I'm going to do that without talking. That was a little thin. I think it's really good to hold your finish. See a lot of people who might not hold their finish because they scull it and they're like, ugh. But you also see people who look like they're very anxious, hit a shot, and I don't think that lends itself to consistent chipping and pitching. So it's a good thing to try to do this stuff and really nail this part. I think that's a good habit. That'd be like kind of what a medium shot looks like. If I was going to go lower, I would get closer to the ball. I would stand the club up a little bit like this because I got closer to it, and I would slide my hands down the grip just a little bit. So it's a lower on the grip setup. Ball is back, still a club head apart. I'm still going to turn back and tip forwards, and I'm still going to move at a constant speed. Ball comes out a lot lower. And then for the high shot, I'm going to do the opposite. Now, I will say to a lot of people, try not to change the swing too much, just change the setup. If you change the setup, you do need to make little subtle adjustments to the swing. When I hit the low shot, the ball was back here, so I hit the ground back here. The high shot, I have to hit the ground farther forward, so that's a little adjustment. I'm going to open the face very slightly. I'm going to hold the top of the grip and have my ball position forwards. I'm going to turn back, tip forwards. I'm going to try to go at a constant speed. And that one goes the highest. I felt some just unintentional changes to how I swung the club, but I tried to use the same baseline motion with a couple of different setups.
Right.
Opening and closing and squaring up the face. So if this is kind of where the face is pointed on a square shot, and then I try to get closer to the ball and stand this up, what you actually can do is kind of like close the face in a little bit on the low one, and it goes straight. And then if I'm going to go with the face a little open like this, what I might do is just lower the handle a little bit until the face is straight on the high one. And I think it's really important not to lose, like all those shots I just hit went straight.
Right.
I think that's pretty important.
Right.
So if straight is not a variable, if the body motion is not a variable, all you need to be in charge of is speed, trajectory. Trajectory happens in the setup. So it's basically like you set your trajectory when you set up to the ball. That one's over. You should always be moving forwards, and ideally always moving at a pretty constant speed.
Right.
So your strike consistency will also be as close to a constant as possible. Speed then becomes the only thing that you have to change.
Right.
And that has to be a variable. There's no other way. Like trying to chunk it to go shorter and thin it to go farther is a bad policy. So you need to know how to control the speed of the club. Controlling the speed of the club comes from, in my opinion, having a reference point. So if I set up for a medium one and I went parallel to parallel and I just hit a bunch of shots, I would just kind of acknowledge that went about 25 yards. If I need to go 15 yards, I know this goes 25, so maybe that goes 15.
Right.
I'm not going to map out every few inches of my stroke. I'm just going to try to make it smaller so it goes shorter. And if I need it to go 30 yards, I'll make it bigger so it goes farther. The rhythm, pretty consistent. The stroke length becomes a variable for speed change. Everything that you do should be on purpose. If you're going to hit a chip shot, you can't just walk up to it and hit it. You have to sort of make a decision. I'm going to hit it to that white flag. How am I going to do that? I would, if I was playing a tournament, this would be a low shot. I would go back in my stance, handle up, face a little in, low on the grip, tip forwards, low shot. I would do it on purpose. A lot of people don't have a trajectory in mind.
Right.
They just kind of are like, there's the flag, here I am, let me just flick it, and then they wonder why it wasn't good. I'm like, you had no plan.
Right.
So this gives you a bit of a system, something to strive for. I think it's pretty easy. It's somewhat memorable, turn back, tip forwards. And it accomplishes the things that you need to accomplish to get the ball close to the hole.
Now,